there's two things happening. One is that when the shutdown ended, Mike Johnson was forced to sign in Adelita Gravala, and she was the 218th signature on the discharge petition, which is pushing legislation into the House to release the Epstein files. Now, of course, it has to go to the Senate after that, but this is putting, shifting around who gets the pressure. The other is the House Oversight, the Democrats on the House Oversight Committee had subpoenaed Jeffrey Epstein's estate and got hold of 20,000 emails that they released in a massive dump. And wow, what of these emails stuck? We could probably talk about this for an hour and a half, but what struck you in the most poignantly in this?
Well, there are a couple of things, just setting Trump aside, just, the groveling obsequiousness of these people toward Jeffrey Epstein, all these important people like Larry Summers and this woman who I can't remember her last name, who was in the White House counsel's office under Obama, just groveling toward Jeffrey Epstein just made me sick. It just tells you. We don't even know how Epstein was really making his money. We don't really know where his wealth came from or how he got all this influence, but he clearly did. And it's sick. Besides that, of course, there's the Trump stuff. And the Trump stuff is very important because it validates something which I wish people would just acknowledge this more, that we already knew. They're acting like, oh, we just found out that Trump really was, good friends with Jeffrey Epstein, and that he really was part of his, look at what Epstein said about him, that he said he's dirty and I know all about him and all that stuff. The fact is, Donald Trump said back in 2002, he's a good friend of mine, lots of fun to be with. And like me, he loves beautiful women, and some of them are on the younger side. We knew that. He knew that. He knew that Jeffrey Epstein had a bunch of younger girls around. And in that comment, it sounds to me like he was saying, yeah, and I like them younger too. So, we've seen the stuff he says about young women, the Miss Teen Universe pageant, all this stuff. So the idea now that suddenly we've got, look, Trump may have been involved in this after all. Of course he was. Of course he was. We know what kind of a man he is. We know that he was, macking on women from the time he was a young man. This was going on forever. He thought he was Hugh Hefner. He sort of fashioned himself, his image, as a Hugh Hefner type, surrounded by beautiful women, and now he was just, this great stud. So none of that is really surprising to me, but I think it is important in that it really seems to have discombobulated them. And we know this because of the fact that Lauren Boebert and Nancy Mace, Marge Green is off on her own thing, but those two, Boebert and Mace, I just assumed they would cave on the vote. I really did. I'm surprised, at least one of them, which is all it would have taken. The fact that both of those women stood by and they dragged Boebert up to the Situation Room in the White House and leaned on her with Kash Patel and Bondi there. And I don't know if Trump and JD were there too, but they put the screws to her and, obviously tried to get her to do it, and she didn't. And that tells me, that just shows the weakness of Trump on this issue. The fact that he couldn't strong arm just enough people in the House to keep that vote. And it would have worked. If he'd have been able to do it, we all would have gone, well, they tried, what are you going to do? And we know it's not going to pass in the Senate, and he's obviously not going to sign anything. And even if he did, Pam Bondi, all she'll has to do is just say, no, I'm not going to do it, and sue me. So, we know that is very unlikely to actually happen. But the fact that these people actually stood there and stood up to Trump, and I can't see how it could have been a setup. Can you? Why would Trump set that whole thing up for his own purposes? He just didn't. I think it's real what we saw there. Boebert and Mace defied Donald Trump. And, frankly, I'm surprised, but I think that there's something there. And all Trump's doing today, he's laughably going in there. Well, I have ordered Pam Bondi to go to investigate Bill Clinton, J.P. Morgan, Chase, and a bunch of other things.
Reid
From what we've,
Hoffman.
it's insane. So, he's rattled, obviously, beyond anything we've seen before, which, of course, makes everyone even more suspicious. that there's something really bad in there. And I'm assuming at this point it's got to be video or something, just
It's
really
gotta be,
horrible.
I mean, what more could be in there that we haven't sort of like reestablished via these emails?
Huh.
And I think I there the it is I've just found it fascinating, both like the Trump strain of these emails, and then just sort of like everybody else that Epstein sort of seems to have had relationships with. I mean, the irony is like there doesn't seem to be any like real the same level of sort of bombs when it comes to Democrats. At one point, I think Epstein says that Hillary Clinton was having an affair with Vince Foster. He implied that in one of those emails. He has emails with Larry Summers, who, yeah, I mean,
Whatever.
um, you might as well be saying, I don't know, JFK had an affair with Marilyn Monroe. I mean, like it's not super relevant these days. Larry Summers, I think, know, I think he's done in Democratic politics now. Maybe he already was, but
Yeah.
thank goodness. I mean, he was a very difficult, but he's done not just in Democratic politics, but I think he's done in politics. Like
Yeah.
he was sitting there harping during the Biden administration, upset about a lot of the antitrust stuff and a lot of the Biden attempts to spend money, and so good riddance to him. Like it's almost like we're getting rid of the worst of a generation one by one in these instances. But there's a lot of it makes you really wonder what's going on with Trump here. And the we mentioned this 2 days ago when it came out. The dog that didn't bark.
Yeah.
That's the one where it shows Ghislaine Maxwell, or I'm sorry, that was the Michael Wolf one, but there's other emails that say that Ghislaine Maxwell lied to Todd Blanche, Trump's
Oh, no
DOJ,
doubt about it. No
and
doubt about
and that's going to put if nothing else comes out, it's going to be very hard for them to do anything more with Ghislaine Maxwell without looking really, really suspicious. And that stuff, a Democratic Congress is going to have Jamie Raskin or whoever it is going to be on that committee is going to have a field day if they take over. But the
Well, don't
dog
you
that
think,
didn't,
Elaine? Don't you think, Elaine, though, that I mean, they've given her this, sent her to this cushy, low security prison. They're giving her all these special things. That's kind of like, to me, and I just wrote about this, so it's on top of my mind. To me, that just says this is just to tide you over, hon. Just we'll make it a little easy for you. But Trump on the way out, of course, he'll take her. He'll grant her pardon or clemency
she
for
was
sure.
asking
But
for
she's going to have to hang.
commutation. Yep.
Yeah, she's just going to have to hang in for a bit, and we'll make it as easy on you as we can. Don't worry, you got a puppy. You're getting all the the privileges, and we'll punish anybody who causes you any trouble in the prison. And you just hang in there, hon. We got you. We got you. I really think that's what's happened. It's a total deal for her. And in the emails absolutely validate the fact that she lied her ass off to Todd Blanche, or she and Todd, wink, wink, nod, nod, as they were recording their interview. I mean, I have no doubt that Todd knew exactly, that Blanche knew exactly what was going on there.
It's also interesting to see how far into the prison Donald Trump has the ability to project power into, right?
Interesting, isn't it?
If you could do it in one prison with one prisoner, maybe you could do it in another prison with another prisoner.
Yeah. I mean, you have to wonder. Even Ghislaine said that she thought that Jeffrey was taken out in prison. So I wonder. I mean, it does make he's got a lot of power and he's not afraid to use it. So let's just put it that way. And there are people that he knows who are willing to carry out his orders under the understanding that if anything were to ever happen, that they were found out that he has the plenary power of the pardon. So, and that's going to be something going forward with Donald Trump we're going to have to deal with, because this guy was given immunity for his official acts. He has the power to pardon anybody that he wants to for any reason, and he's showing it day in and day out. He pardoned the Binance guy who, is basically stuffed a couple $1 billion in his family's pockets. And he has no shame, no, hesitancy. He just does it. And so anybody that needs to do something to help Donald Trump, and Ghislaine probably knows that too.
Yep. Um,
I don't.
Getting back to that, the dog that didn't bark.
Yeah.
I think at the time, I think Matt, you made the point that it was a Sherlock Holmes reference, and Epstein was a pretty literary guy, and the dog that didn't bark was basically a dog that knew the truth, or knew
the criminal.
There was a burglary, and the dog didn't bark on the occasion of the burglary, and it's suspicious. It suggests that the dog knew the burglar, basically.
Exactly. And so Trump not barking, I think I had first interpreted it as, oh, he's not talking.
Mhm.
But it's also that if you read it over carefully, it seems this is after Epstein. There had been I think it was in the BBC, a documentary about him. This is leading up, to his first conviction. And the question was like, why hasn't Trump spoken out about this?
Mhm.
And I think the implication is that he may not have spoken out about it, not because he was protecting himself, because remember, this is 2011. I mean, Donald Trump's still going on Howard Stern, basically saying horrible things. But more so because maybe Trump was the person who provided information on Jeffrey Epstein. You'll recall that when questioned about this, Mike Johnson first came out, remember, for a day, had let it hang out there.
Yeah.
Trump
Yeah.
was an FBI informant.
Mhm.
And so one wonders if Donald Trump was somebody who sort of fingered Epstein in that case, provided evidence or information to the FBI, and because he knew exactly what was going on there, and maybe got protection himself in that instance.
Yeah. I mean, are you suggesting that Donald Trump would have done something vengeful against Jeffrey Epstein? Like, for instance, beating him out on a big real estate deal where he ended up getting a vast profit from the house that he ended up beating Epstein over by selling it to a Russian money launderer. I don't think Trump would do anything like that. He's just honest as the day is long, and he would never do that. Now, the idea of him being an informant is very interesting because, informants tend to have protection. They get immunity for whatever crimes they were involved in. So, and, that whole deal, the sweetheart deal that Epstein got in 2008, the first time he was indicted and actually prosecuted and convicted, is just unbelievable. It is an unbelievable breach. And the fact that Trump then put the prosecutor who concocted that deal into his cabinet is beyond belief. It's so interesting because, this is one of the aspects of this story that I hadn't really followed that closely until recently as it's come back. There was a federal prosecution getting ready to go on Epstein, and it was thorough. They looked at the money, they looked at everything. And the money is one of the untold stories about it. Nobody really understands it, but they looked at it. The prosecutor there had it all ready to go. We've never seen that. I can't remember what they call it. It's sort of a draft indictment, I guess. And they just absolutely deep-sixed it and went for a state charge. And then we know what happened. He pled guilty, and he got he got to leave in the daytime and come back at night and have slumber parties with the guards, I guess, at the jail. It was absolutely unbelievable that happened, and just an incredibly weird coincidence that Trump then rewarded that prosecutor who put together that deal by putting him in the cabinet. Hard to believe that
It is hard to believe. And I'll say also, one of my sort of like pet theories about Trump in the run up to the 2016 election and the October 2016 piece in the New York Times about how there was a mutiny coming from the New York FBI office against Comey. It always struck me, here's a guy who's clearly had business practices that were dubious for decades.
Yeah.
You go from he gets that consent decree in the 70s about you got to allow black people into your apartment buildings. And then he's basically untouchable, or untouched, I should say, for years and years. And then you have an FBI office in New York that is very, very protective of Donald Trump, and has a relationship with Rudy Giuliani, who Trump also did. And you start to wonder, and had a special advisor in Felix Seder, who was I think it's a report, not just a reported CIA and FBI source, but Loretta Lynch, the U.S. attorney under the Obama, when she was at the U.S. attorney's office in the Eastern District, had written an affidavit on his saying that he was a source. You start to wonder, if Donald Trump was the person who gave evidence to the FBI about Jeffrey Epstein, did he have a pre-existing relationship with the FBI? Was he one of those people who escaped scrutiny from Manhattan DA, New York Attorney General, all those years, guys trying to make their name by going after big fish? I mean, Donald Trump you would imagine someone would have brought something against him, but never did. I don't know. There's a lot there that I feel like, because what else could be in this trove of stuff that Trump is so virulently trying to stop from being released?
That's the thing. I mean, it's a crazy way to be dealing with this. I just saw somebody, I can't remember, it was Michael Smirkonish or one of those guys on cable, going, well, there's been no evidence that Donald Trump did anything wrong. He didn't do anything wrong. And, you'd think that he would just go ahead and release them, and say that, that they should release the files and get it behind him and just do the right thing here. And all it does is raise suspicions that there's something in there. And I'm screaming at the TV, there's something in there. Obviously.
What's the obvious answer to why he's so desperate to hide these things?
No, I'm going, why is everybody giving him the benefit of the doubt? It doesn't make any sense that he's doing this. You've got to be kidding me. So I just, it's beyond, and he really is desperate. This stuff that he's putting out today on Truth Social is absolutely pathetic. It is flop sweat, times 1,000. That he's now reduced to going after J.P. Morgan and Chase, and saying that they need to be investigated, because he's busy running the country and we should stop. I mean, he's basically begging people to stop talking about it. And of course, they're not going to. And it's very interesting to me. I think Trump has always had he's got a lizard brain instinct about what his followers care about. I don't know where it comes from. He's a rich guy from Queens. I don't know where he gets this instinct, but he has it. He's just, I guess, because he's a jerk, and so are they, most of them. But he can, this has got him worried, and not just because of the revelation. It's because he couldn't get Lauren Boebert to turn. He could, he doesn't have any power on this. He doesn't seem to be able to do it. I mean, he had Charlie Kirk before he was killed, and others, the influencers, they're out there going, well, I'm going to believe my friends in the White House, and I'm just going to let this go. But nobody's letting it go. They're not letting it go. And the base isn't letting it go. The Fox audience, they can black out the story all they want, and their audience is still getting it. They're getting it on their, in their emails from grandma. Everybody's talking about it, whether he likes it or not.
Hey, folks, don't forget to hit the subscribe button and check out our daily show. We do it every day at 12 p.m. Eastern for about 2.5 hours. We even take phone calls. You should check that out.